Hello, folks. Oh, gee, there's more of you than we thought there would be tonight. I thought everyone would be on holiday. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've given you permission to record as well, Ben. I've started recording.
it's cool. I'm doing it.
Just got a few marks coming, just got a few others just coming in late, so I'll make sure give everyone a extra second. Stick yourselves on mute if you're not Phil, Tom, or Ben. Oh, thanks, thanks, Jess. So Phil, sorry, Phil, you won't be aware of this, but Ben and I recently completed a bike ride from Land's End to John O'Groats
Oh,
on a
nice. Good job.
tandem.
On a
Um,
tandem.
yes,
Very good
and
job.
we did it all in the aid of pubs. So we only stopped in pubs for food, drink, to sleep, anything. If we got a problem with a bike, we had to get a bike mechanic to a pub.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay.
the whole point was to show how versatile pubs are, but also just we filmed it, we put it on our YouTube channel, and we just wanted to draw attention to the challenges the hospitality industry is facing at the moment, because it's obviously a very tough time.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so we're getting a lot of people saying, "Well
Good. Well,
done."
after this call, it'd be great if you could send me the link and I'll have a watch as well.
Oh yes, for
Oh,
sure.
great. We're desperate.
Don't you
We
worry.
are
We'll do that. I'll tell you what,
shameless
Phil. I
in
won't
our
wait. I'm going to do it
YouTube
now.
subscribers.
Yeah, like and subscribe, like and subscribe. No, it went very well actually, and it was extraordinary to see how many people out there really are having a tough time in this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's challenging.
It's very, very challenging indeed. Okay, right, we're going to kick off. Latecomers, I'll keep an eye on Ben. Hello, everybody. Good to be back.
Hello,
Um,
everybody.
we were aware we owe you a tasting, which we'll add on to your subscription at the end, because we were on that bike ride, so we couldn't do it last month. Thank you for all the support from all you folks. Um, it was lovely to see some of you out there as well. Thank you, Paul, for meeting us at Land's End, no less. And yes, it all went very well, but you can see all of that on our YouTubes. If you are not already subscribing, what is wrong with you? Subscribe
I
now.
mean, get on board. We couldn't have been clearer. Come
Yeah,
on.
I think you understand our MO. But today we are going to be tasting some gin, and we've sent it out thanks to Hayman's Gin, who are the owners of this gin, in miniatures. Isn't that posh? So it's a bit different. Yeah, a bit different, isn't it? We've got some miniatures. That was something they requested. And we're here with Phil Gabriel, who is the distillery manager. So Phil, it looks after all of distillation, Phil, is that fair to say? Yeah.
Everything Hayman's branded. Yep.
Everything you're making there. So we couldn't have a better guest this month. The man who makes the stuff you're going to drink, and he's obviously a bit of an encyclopedia on Haynes as well. So as we've got someone who is such an authority on this gin, we're going to be putting questions to Phil over the evening as we taste them. We're going to be tasting them in the order of the London Dry first, then the Old Tom, then the slow gin at the end. And Ben and I are going to be tasting them neat. You are welcome to mix them if you've got some mixers or cocktails. But we want to go through all the botanicals with Bill and understand how the different styles of gin are made and how that affects the different flavour profiles. So thank you very much, Phil, for joining us.
No
And
problem
as
at all.
Thank you, Phil.
from the crew, we'll put the questions to you as well. But we were just chatting before, and Phil said, would it be worth just giving you guys a bit of a history and taking us up to the modern day of where Hayman's has come from and where we are? And Phil was very happy to do that. So, Phil, we know it as one of the most historic gin brands,
Mhm.
dating
Absolutely.
back to the 1800s. The
Mhm.
period of time we always talk about the renaissance of gin after the
Yep.
1700s and up to 1750 when it was a problem. Really, it took another 80 years before things started to turn around again and gin started to become a bit more popular again. So where does
Absolutely.
it fit into that part of the history?
Well, I mean, it started with a chap who you guys have probably all heard of before, Mr. James Burrow. And you know, as a young man in London, working as a chemist, he got a little bit bored really, and he took himself traveling for a few years. And this was 1860. He traveled mostly around North America, parts of Canada as well. You know, and you know, in these parts of the world at the time, the Industrial Revolution had already taken, you know, quite a bit of a grip. He discovered lots of new bits of equipment and new fun ways of being able to deal with um, recipes and concoctions that he was already producing then. Also, new ingredients, which is a big thing. I mean, if we look at, which we will do in a minute, we'll look at the 10 botanicals that go into our London Dry, as well as all of our other gins. A lot of them were available in England, but you know, some other things, especially things like citrus peels, were mostly reserved for like the wealthier or the higher classes, you know, when they were coming into England at this point. But James got to experiment and play about with these things a lot more so on his travels. And so when he came back to England, he bought a small gin company on Cale Street in Chelsea, and it had a small apartment above. And when I say a small apartment, it was very small and it was probably a bit run down and probably not very well ventilated. So for him to go ahead and put a 260-litre copper pot still right in the middle of this unventilated apartment, you know, questionable thing for what was a very smart man at the time. But he did anyway. And a lot of people seem to think that he would have started off, you know, start making gin straight away. But he didn't really. Even though he had bought a gin company at the time, he was still messing about with making things like insecticides and pesticides and even toothpaste, things like that at the time. But he did end up falling in love with the production of gin, and he made it his job to improve gin, or improve on what was already being made at the time in London. At the time, there probably were some average or okay gins moving around these gin palaces at the time, but what he really wanted to do was completely change the style of gin. And at that time, people were drinking a more sweetened style gin, as we know as Old Tom today. And a lot more botanically intense. The base spirit was probably not as refined as what he wanted. Was definitely not as refined as what is used nowadays. And so James set about this, and after a couple of years, in 1863, he launched his gin, which quite quickly became known as London Dry Gin, which, as of today, is now the largest consumed style of gin all over the world. And from that original recipe, which we still have, we've got a multitude of recipes that the family do. James and Miranda Hayman and Christopher Hayman still do, which we've worked from, but they originally worked from his original recipes to produce this London Dry Gin. And this London Dry Gin is obviously the London Dry Gin that most gin distilleries are going to release is going to be their signature product to begin with, and they're going to follow on through with that. And for us, very much the same way. If you've probably seen our tagline on our new promotions, we do call ourselves the original gin, and we do this because we are still following that exact recipe and that exact distillation process that James followed in 1863, or pioneered in 1863, should I say. Not only that, with this style of gin coming along, he was one of the first people really to be playing about with adding citrus into a gin as well, though.
Was he? I didn't know that, Phil. What was that? Is that based on the fact that it was more readily available at that point, or
it was? I mean, especially with things like Covent Garden Market was the most popular at the time for flowers and fruits, and so that is the entrance where the regular people or the working class people in London would have been able to start getting access to these things. And they were far and few between. There wouldn't have been a huge amount available, and they would have been still expensive. But before that, kind of unheard of. I mean, they don't grow here. We did have spices available and ready to us, but things like citrus fruits, no. He was one of the first people really to start marketing products with citrus in. Wow. And especially, even though we're talking about a London Dry Gin, most London Dry Gins now is still got moving towards that a little bit more citrus note, which you'll find in our London Dry as well. Unlike an Old Tom, for example, something like that. But yeah, and still to this day, we haven't changed anything about it. We're still using the same botanicals, we're still using the same recipe, we're still using the same process, day in day out, to make the same London Dry Gin, which is really nice. You know, the Haymans are still we're the only family-owned distillers from this time period left as well. You know, we haven't sold out to anybody. We're still 100% family owned and still 100% family run as well. James and Miranda, and still their father Christopher, who's 77 now. He's probably taking a bit of a back step now, but he's still on the board. But you know, he still pops in 2-3 times a month and drinks us under the table with martinis.
That is extraordinary. So what would that go as in terms of generations? Is that
so he's generation James and Miranda generation 5.
Wow.
Yeah. And you know, Christopher, he's a fountain of knowledge himself. You know, I always joke with him that, you know, he's running out of space for awards that he's got in his house. We have to start keeping it at the distillery now. We literally just have a whole corner just full of things that, you know, that he's won. And, you know, he's very high up in the gin guild as well, and he's very well respected. And, you know, it's very nice being able to work, especially as a young distiller. I'm not a young person, but I'm a young distiller. So it's nice to be able to work with someone like Christopher, you know, and James and Miranda as well.
Yeah. How did you get into it, Phil? Just out of interest, then, how did you? What's your background?
I fell into distillation by accident, really. I've always worked within hospitality for the majority of my working life. And I was doing some consultancy work, and a friend of mine asked me if I would come and help her open and operate for 6 months a new bar that was being opened by Chapel Down, the English wine company. They were opening a huge site in King's Cross quite a few years ago. And I initially came on board just for recruitment, training, you know, product development, and writing menus. And they had a small gin distillery on the side, a 240-litre still in there. And I couldn't find anybody to run the distillery for the budget they gave me to work with. And so I just thought I'd try and do it myself. So I'm not joking. I just literally watched loads of YouTube videos on how to make gin. I messed up, but I'm quite lucky. I've been able to, you know, get my hands on and work with some very intelligent and smart people over the years who've taught me a lot. And so it's kind of stemmed from there, really. I spent a long part of my career working for Jake Berger at Portobello Road Gin.
Oh yes, okay, yeah, we know Jake very well.
Jake is still one of my teachers, as I'm sure most people who know him would probably agree. On all aspects of alcohol. But yeah, he was a big part of
and
life. Yeah. Did I hear rightly that Jake's actually going to Sweden?
I didn't know that was public knowledge.
Oh really? Okay.
I did hear something along those lines. Yes.
Oh okay. No, I just well, we'll move on then.
But yeah, but that's led me to Hayman's, and I've been here for nearly 2 years now. It's been amazing running this distillery. It's such a very different space to what I was used to before. If anyone's ever been down here, you'll know what I mean. It's a very big open space, but it's a very calm, relaxing place. It's very nice working for a family-owned business, which I've never done before. It's a very different vibe, but it's very good. It's very nice.
No, nice. Oh, that's good. So, so the London Dry was first.
So yeah, well, I mean, it was not the actual first product that when James and Miranda took control of the business from their father. They relaunched Hayman's essentially. Hayman's already made, but one of their first big products they really pushed was actually a gin liqueur.
Right.
And then that stemmed into the London Dry straight after. Not very long after, maybe only about 6-7 months after that. But we still actually produce a quite time period gin liqueur, which is still sitting at 40% ABV, and for a liqueur it's quite different. So it's quite a different product. It's very strange when you first get hold of it, because most people don't know how to go about consuming it. At the time in that period, you know, gin liqueurs, very, very overly sweet, you know, a lot sweeter than an Old Tom would have been. Still got that huge botanical intensity and still high ABV. So, you know, it's actually nice to just sip from the glass. Not very many gins like that. So,
well, we'll start. Have a drink because it's 1:15.
Yeah.
We'll start with the London Dry because that's what you're talking about. Am I breaking up a bit, Ben? Am I all right?
No, I don't know if it's you or me, but I think it's a little. But I Rose. He bought the distillery for £4.
Yep.
63, I think.
Yep.
Which is the equivalent of 62 grand.
Oh wow, okay. I've never worked it out that way, but yeah.
You couldn't. I mean, that for a distillery, especially one in Chelsea, you're not going to get that kind of thing.
No. I mean, when James and Miranda wanted to build this venue, we've been here for 7 years now. when they wanted to build this venue, the idea was to try and get back home as close as possible to Kell Street in Chelsea. But a few things have changed in 160 years, and one of them being rent prices in Chelsea.
Yeah.
So the closest we could get was Balham.
You don't want to live in Chelsea anyway. It's not. It's come on.
Chelsea scum.
Yeah, I would never be able to drive to work or park anywhere, would I? So
exactly, full of posh people.
And talk us through the botanicals then, Phil. So what have we got in here?
So our London Dry. So these 10 botanicals are important. These 10 botanicals that are in the London Dry actually extend to our whole range. The ratio does change quite a bit. So obviously we've got our juniper, coriander. We have lemon peel and orange peel. We use Spanish sweet orange, Spanish lemons. And then we've also got angelica root, orris root, very well known and very widely used, especially in London Dries. Spice-wise, we've got cassia bark and cinnamon, just to get a little bit more of that diversity going on. We have nutmeg and we have licorice root as well. What you'll find with our London Dry is more so than quite a few is the first couple of sniffs you get, you're going to get mostly citrus to begin with. There's a little bit of white pepper. There's a lot of coriander in our London Dry gin, going alongside that sweet orange and lemon as well. That a lot of coriander, it really, really does open it up to your first little smell. You're going to get a lot of that coriander, earthy, dry coriander, a little bit of white pepperiness from the coriander as well. And it's not until you get to the second, third good smell is when you're going to start hitting that heavy juniper note, and then you'll get the fresher citrus coming from lemon and orange. But it's the coriander that really comes through a lot to begin with.
As we've got you here, Phil, can you talk to us a little bit about juniper and and the varieties of juniper and what you look for?
Well, variety-wise, I mean, we're kind of spoiled for choice variety-wise. There is, I mean, I've always gone down the path of the two best places in the world to get juniper from, probably Macedonia and Tuscany. They seem to be the most widely used anyway. But where it does grow wild in these two regions, in these two parts, should I say. It's got a lot of it grows on hillsides, so you've got good irrigation as well. Juniper plants, they like to take on a lot of water. Juniper does grow in England, but as we're all aware, it's very wet here. So the plants do take on a lot of water, and those leaves that encapsulate those small little pine cones, they end up, people call them juniper berries because they work a little bit like juniper. They hold a lot of moisture in there. So with the plant getting too much groundwater, they do become very oversaturated and a little bit wishy-washy. But good irrigation ground is in Macedonia is very healthy for these plants. Once they're harvested, and these are all naturally dried outside. I have come across kiln dried juniper before, but it's not the best. You tend to lose quite a lot of the moisture, and the oils that are inside become too tacky and too heavy. But yeah, all the naturally dried juniper outside is great for us. And we buy 100% of our juniper from Macedonia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And obviously, in more recent years, the discussion around what gin is and the slightly less discerning products that have arrived in the market have challenged the idea of juniper. But I assume you are an advocate of something that if you're going to call it a London Dry gin, it should be quite juniper forward.
Absolutely. Juniper, I mean, the law does very loosely state that juniper needs to be the most predominant flavour. And in nearly every good gin you'll ever buy, it's definitely going to be the most predominant flavour. Some you might have to hunt for a little bit more. Or for me, say like our London Dry, you get a lot of citrus to begin with. And then as it dials down, your palate gets used to it, and your nose does. That juniper obviously shines through more so than ever. I've also seen the market change a lot. I mean, those gins that were not really juniper-led for a very long period of time, they tend not to stay around for too long. After a few years you'll see them start disappearing off shelves and off of back bars as well. I think the market, even with the younger drinkers, have started to move back towards traditional London Dry style gins. And I see people ordering in bars as well, Tanqueray, Beefeater, Hayman's, things like that. People have reverted back to these original style gins.
Well,
I think a lot of that is to do with the amount of education that's out there for gin now, with the amount of gin schools and gin tours you can go on. People have started to take heed of that and move back towards the traditional styles, which is great.
And we're talking about the role of the angelica. Is that? Yep. I was reading that botanical is sort of binds a lot of the other botanicals together. Sort of grounds
it does. So angelica and orris. both have a very similar effect and job within gin. Angelica and Oris are never really used predominantly for their own flavors. They do impart flavor, of course, but small quantities of these are used in comparison to things like juniper, coriander, citrus peels. But a lot of the time, it's more about what they can do to the gin through production. So with like Oris and Angelica, both work in a similar way. It's a very long open chain, so other oils will be able to cling onto it and hold onto it. And it works in a preservative in that sense. When you open a bottle of gin, or if I have 1,000-litre vat of gin, freshly made, when you open the lid, all those oils, they want to escape, they want to run away. They're a lot more very volatile. But with the addition of Oris and Angelica, it really locks those flavors in together in the same way that Oris does for, say, perfume production. It's the same thing as well. So Oris is a big component used in perfume production, as is Angelica as well, for very similar reasons.
Okay. So when we're tasting this gin, I mean, I do think there's a lot of talk about drinking. If we ever order a neat gin in a bar with a bit of ice, people tend to suggest we've got a problem.
Yes, agreed.
And yet, people will drink a whiskey or a rum, and I just think, or a brandy, and I just think that I quite enjoy putting even a bit of water into a gin, because this is really where we're going to get that profile. So as we're tasting the London Dry, Phil, what are the flavour gears we're going through? What do you be experiencing?
Well, like I said, you're going to get this burst of citrus to begin with straight away, especially on the nose more than the palate. The first smell on the palate, as soon as you get there, you're going to get the juniper hit more so than citrus when it hits your palate. That's for sure. That's definitely going to be there. The warming spices, they're going to hit you more. Things like cinnamon and cassia, they're going to hit you more at the back of the jawline here and at the back of the neck. Okay, the warming spices don't hit you on down here. That's alcohol.
Yeah.
It's the same everything. But those warming spices are more going to hit you on the back of the neck, on the bottom of the jawline, just here. And then things like spices, when you've got lots of citrus going on as well, your nose tends to not pick up on the spices so much because citrus oils are very volatile. So you'll get an abundance of those to begin with. Once your palate has tasted it, your nose will pick it up better as well. So they kind of work alongside each other in that sense. Juniper is going to be the lasting flavor that's going to sit there on your palate, even a couple of minutes after that first sip, which is what we've always wanted to go for. Christopher is a very old school realist and believes that gin should always just taste like. I was at an event with him at the Gin Guild quite a while ago now, which is before I worked for him actually, and I overheard someone approach him and say, "What flavor is your gin?" And Christopher turned around and went, "What do you mean? What flavor is my gin? My gin tastes like gin."
Wow, that's a ballsy question.
Like when we were in a Cornish pub on our bike ride, and the landlord told a story about someone who came into this really quite rough Cornish pub, and all they served was pasties, and the guy asked whether they were Cornish pasties, and apparently the entire pub just stopped. It's
I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall in that exchange.
There's some questions. Just read the room, guys. Christ's sake.
But it's actually, I mean, that is a good example of how you can drink that gin neat and get so many layers of flavour, and it is quite rounded, isn't it? I mean, it's not like it's really aggressive, alcoholic. It's just a lighter experience to an aged spirit, and I don't see why you wouldn't do that, at least in your first trying of the gin, so that you can understand all those flavours.
I think with our London Dry, the perfume tends to be a little bit more subtle. We're not using any big floral notes. The most floral thing you're going to get out of this is Oris, which is going to have that strong, almost like violet aroma coming from it. But they tend to get taken over with the amount of juniper and coriander is very heavy in this gin. Very predominant. I mean, believe it or not, there's actually more coriander in weight used than juniper.
Oh, okay.
Which is
really?
rare. I've worked for quite companies, and there's never been the case before. Juniper is going to impart 4 or 5 times more flavor in terms of, say, 1 kilo of that 1 kilo of coriander. But it's that earthy, white, peppery citrus note that really leads the first taste on this gin. That's for sure.
Mm.
It's also, I mean, one of the main things about this London Dry is I've always found it's one of the most diverse London Dries I've ever had as well. So on its own, beautiful. Ice cube, lovely. Gin and tonic. I'm not a big fan of tonic personally, so I prefer gin and soda. But it's got the light, crispy freshness that you need in a gin and tonic. Also makes a phenomenal martini.
Mm. Yeah.
At the end of the day, everyone will probably agree with me that a martini is probably might be the most personalized drink in the world anyway. But without a good base, it can't be a well personalized drink anyway. And we've just started to launch freezer martinis as well around a lot of our on-trade accounts, so pre-batched martinis. And we're just getting the bars to make it themselves, but giving them an instruction and showing them. We've designed a new martini masterclass for on-trade customers to come in and learn a little bit more about what a martini is and the makeup of a martini and why our London Dry suits that so well.
That is very good.
They're such a simple drink, but so difficult to make well, really.
There's a few pitfalls that you can easily fall into with like making a martini, but I think at the end of the day, if you learn the basics and then you listen to the person you're making it for, you can't go wrong. Yeah. And I think that's the most important thing is listening to the person that you're making it for. At the end of the day, it's their drink, and that's what they need.
And just to go back to botanicals, you've got the 10 botanicals, and they're the same 10 in every variant you make at the distillery.
Absolutely. But even some of the more modern ones, the ratios do change quite a bit between them. But the three that we're going to go through today, the origins, these three recipes are still handwritten, and they're from that same time period. We've got a few more modern releases, which are definitely not and a little bit different, but James and Miranda still wanting to keep those 10 within all of the gins. The ratio do change quite a bit, but it's about sticking to their tradition, sticking to the way that their family wants to make gin, essentially.
Yeah. But you can add other botanicals.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a vibrant citrus as well, where we add 4 extra citrus on top of the 10 and
pomelo and all that. Yeah. Okay, gotcha. And in terms of obviously at the moment, there's the cost of things are going fluctuating wildly. Is there any botanical that's in these 10, any of these 10 botanicals where the price has gone crazy?
Yeah, absolutely. Orris root has jumped quite a bit, but then again, so has juniper. Juniper, in the last 4 years, juniper's nearly doubled in price.
Is it?
And what's that due to? Just demand?
I mean, importation taxes rise as well. Demand has actually dropped, believe it or not, in the last 4 years. I'm sure. There's actually less production of gin going on within England than there was, say, 4 or 5 years ago, and 6 years ago. So I think demand has dropped a little bit, and also there is the talk of not as many people are going out drinking. So I think the demand for even the people who are still making gin has dropped a little bit, but it's a lot of it is to do with importation tax on those things.
I wanted to get political. Has Brexit been
Yeah, Brexit made a big difference to it. For a long time, for a very long time as well, everybody bought Russian coriander, but no one buys Russian anything anymore. And so, finding those from around the world as well changes quite a bit. I mean, we're actually talking about potentially using an English coriander now because it grows very, very well in this country, and there's a lot of it growing.
That's cool. That would be very cool. Someone's asked you, Phil, what ratio your martini would be on a dry martini.
On a dry martini, like 10 to 1.
10 to 1.
10 to 1. For me, my personal preference was a little bit on the wet side, so a 5 to 1. I've always felt with the style of production of vermouth goes under, with botanicals as well, and vermouth really does complement gin more so than it does pretty much any other spirit in the world, I think. And so they really work very well together.
Is there a particular vermouth you're using that you'd recommend?
I'm a big fan of Cocky. But I'm also a big fan of Carpano. It's affordable. They do a half-liter bottle, so you don't have to drink 24 martinis in a week. It's a great vermouth. But Cocky, I've been a big fan of them for a long time. Very good quality.
We've had a tasting with them in the past. Actually, it is very good gear. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next gin. We're going to move on to Old Tom.
Sure.
And I tend to associate Hayman's with the Old Tom gin.
Yep.
And I think because they've kind of pioneered not pioneered. They've helped preserve and protect
Of
the
course, absolutely.
story of it. So why is that, Bill? What's the background there?
Well, I mean, Old Tom is very much the gin that London was drinking before the arrival of London Dry. Okay, this was the popular style of gin. You know, a little bit of sugar added after distillation. In that period, especially in like the early 1800s, a lot of that was to do with the fact that people were using some quite low class and low quality botanicals and quite nefarious ingredients, and to mask up the the flavor of some of these not so great ingredients they were using or techniques they were using for production. They would add sugar. Sugar was also readily available as an affordable commodity for everyone at the time, and so by adding sugar to your gin, you could mask up all those undesirable flavors and products that were in your gin. And so, alcohol is addictive, so sugar. So they're probably winning on both fronts. But also, people become addicted to the sugar and that sweet style of gin. But with a lot of the government talk around at the time, especially in the mid 1800s, late 1800s, when the government were trying to crack down on this, people started to think, oh, actually, maybe this style of gin or what we're drinking is not good for us. It's not healthy for us. And with the arrival of London Dry Gin, it was almost like this gleaming, shining light that came out of a distillery. And there was never been a product like it before. It was almost sold like a health product, but more than anything else, over the top of things like Old Tom at the time. Now, the Old Tom that we have here is a very modernized version of an Old Tom, still using a family recipe from that time period, but we're actually using filtered water now and good quality base spirits. But with the arrival of London Dry Gin, Old Tom fell out of popularity all over England, and it wasn't maybe 4 or 5 years after the arrival of London Dry. Nobody in England, we don't have records of anybody in England making any Old Tom gin anymore, and so nobody even spoke about it. And there are still lots of records about them, but people weren't really chasing them up or searching for them because of this reason. It fell out of popularity, and then about 16 years ago, James Hayman, my boss, he was approached by a few bartenders, American bartenders, who were trying to, work from some of the handwritten cocktail books from the likes of the American bar at the Savoy and stuff like that. And, they've gone through the rum section, they've gone through the whiskey section, the vodka section. When you get to the gin section of these books, nearly every recipe, there's more recipes for gin cocktails in the world than there are pretty much any other spirit combined. And when you get to these recipes, that they all call for a style of gin called Old Tom. Nobody's produced an Old Tom gin in this country in nearly 150 years. Okay, so a lot of people was like, well, we can't get hold of it. What is it? We really want to know what it is as well. Start doing some research. They approached James and asked him about it. And, James honestly just said, I'm not sure either. And if any of you have ever met James Hayman, you'll probably know that he does not like to admit defeat. And so he looked through some of the family archives of the recipes that he has and came across a family recipe for an Old Tom gin from that time period. So he went a step further. Obviously, the base spirit that we were using at the time was a lot higher quality, and water and like that, and the botanical quality is better. So he went a step further and made a batch. Everyone fell in love with it when he was offering it around, that he decided to re-release it as one of our main lines for Hayman's. And Hayman's Old Tom Gin became the first Old Tom Gin to be released in the UK market in nearly 150 years. There's a lot around now. I'm not saying everyone's copying us, but they are. And Old Tom Gin, people have fallen back in love with Old Tom Gin, especially behind the bar. I think this product works so much better on a back bar than it would be people just coming in to buy it for gin and tonics. It still makes a lovely gin and tonic. It's got a huge amount of texture to it. It's got massive mouthfeel to it compared to London Dry. Old Tom gins also tend to be a lot more botanically intense than, say, London Dries. So the same 10 botanicals are used in this. The juniper, there's another third the amount of juniper on top. There's a little bit more coriander. There's a lot more lemon, a lot more orange, and a lot more licorice root. Licorice root is one of those ingredients that creates a really nice viscosity and thickness to a gin as well. It adds texture. And so that really does benefit as well. After distillation, a small amount of cane sugar syrup is added to our London Dry. It sits at only 0.2% higher ABV than the London Dry. But when you do taste it, it will be a lot more palatable, a lot easier going down, not quite as sharp. It tends to be a lot more bold, a lot more rounded edges. It lends itself so well to mixing in a cocktail. The texture is really there. The presence of the botanicals shines through even more so. It's got a bit more of a punch to it. And for me, it's actually my favorite product that we make at Hayman's. I remember when I was introduced to this product when I was a bartender a long time ago, working in Soho, running a Beer One, and a friend of mine came in and gave me a bottle of this, and I'd never had an Old Tom before. I didn't even know what it was, and I drank it, and then about a year later, I saw it on nearly every back bar in London. It's quite nice that I now get to make it.
How much sugar? Sorry, did you say?
And there's the.
Oh, sorry, Ben. I just wanted to know how much sugar syrup goes in it, and how that differs to, say, a liqueur.
It's less than a third of what will be added to a liqueur for it to be classified as a liqueur. James always tells me not to tell exactly how much sugar we add.
I'd asked that question before, so we're getting closer to the answer there. You've given information that's never been imparted, Phil. Thank you. I won't start talking numbers.
No problem.
But there's a story, the Old Tom, the pipe coming through the cat's mouth, illicit consumption of it. How much? Obviously, we've told that story hundreds of times because it's a good story. But is it true? Did that happen? Because
it 100% happened.
Yeah.
There's lots of records of it written down that act actually happened. I was about 90% sure that that's where the term Old Tom came from. And then I listened to an extremely interesting podcast about 2 weeks ago. As some of you probably know, Jared, who started Simsmith, and he recently released a new gin, which I was a bit fascinated by. But every time he releases a new gin, obviously he has to have a book to go alongside it because it's Jared. And he was on Tristan's podcast about 2 weeks ago, and they were really talking about some of the records that they found surrounding gin production and the stories of gin. And I'm yet to finish the podcast, so I'm not going to say too much about it. But it was quite eye-opening. Into they do talk about Old Tom in there for a very short period, but I'm yet to sit down and actually take notes on it yet. But I'm pretty sure that, like I said, I'm 90% sure this is where the term Old Tom comes from. There's lots of stories floating around about where the term Old Tom comes from. Most of them are absolutely outrageous. They definitely just don't make sense, or they don't even fit in with the time period of what people are talking about. But yes,
they're good stories. Let's not let the facts get in the way of a good story.
It is a great story. It's a great story.
The number of things you've said on stage, Ben, and just because it was a better story than the truth is.
If you want the truth, you go to someone like Jared. If you want entertaining,
I don't think I'd ever say that to his face, but I might do one day.
Everyone's enjoying that. Jez has just said that is good, and it's very sippable, and it is. That's the thing about that style of gin is. I would drink a London dry neat, but maybe that is because I've got a problem. But that is a gin that is
just with an ice cube in as well. It is absolutely beautiful. It is so good. One of my favorite drinks in the world is a Martinez, and this makes an outstandingly good Martinez. We actually have about 100 bottles of Martinez pre-batched in the freezers out the back at the moment, which every time I come in, there's like 3 bottles missing. So I don't know what the staff are doing on Fridays, going through it upstairs.
It's a very good drink.
It's one of our signature serves for that, of course. And why would it not be? And when we have guests coming into the distillery, Martinez is basically what we're going to give them for that.
Okay. I'll recommend.
It's very sippable. It's very you can understand why everyone got in so much trouble back then.
Absolutely.
It's like, given that water wouldn't have been that nice either.
It wasn't.
Right, brilliant. They are very distinctive, but like you say, the juniper comes through on both of them. And the next one we're going to try is the slow gin.
Yep.
I've had that before. You notice that's very. I know it just sounds silly, but it's very gin forward. Quite a lot of slow gins. You're like, well, this is just very
slow.
It's very slow and tarty.
Yes, and I think a lot of that, Len, is because of the the style that we use to produce our slow. I mean, there are still people who do this quite a lot, but it's not that popular anymore. People, the way a lot of people will make a slow now is they will buy a slow juice concentrate, and then they'll just blend it with their London Dry, and that's it. But when that happens, it tends to be very one-dimensional in flavor, and you tend to just get hit by that slow. There's hints of gin in others, but like you said, this is a slow gin. This is quintessential English product. Slow gin predates London Dry. Slow gin predates Old Tom. Slow gin was never originally made in a distillery either. This was definitely a homemade product before anyone started producing it in distilleries. If, you know, with the arrival of the blackthorn bush in England, when the government were trying to divide up agricultural land, is where all of these slows come from. You know, when all of a sudden there's this abundance of free fruit around the country, people are going to take advantage of it. But if you've ever eaten a slow, you'll know exactly what I mean when I say they're not the nicest things to eat. So people had to find other ways of using them, and putting them into gin was one of the best ways. So for us, production-wise, when we do this, I will produce a batch of London Dry gin. It's a different recipe, still got the same 10 botanicals, but we do increase the cinnamon, the cassia, the nutmeg, the licorice, and the juniper. So the more wintry spices definitely go up. The juniper goes up because we're going to put this other, you know, quite syrupy sugar in it, and then we're going to put another fruit in there. So like you said a minute ago, it still has that ginny effect to it. We up that juniper a lot. We use the whole fruit as opposed to, say, a slow juice concentrate. The whole fruit is going to add so much more diversity and flavor. If you've ever eaten a slow, like I said earlier, you'll know that they're not very nice, but you'll also know they have quite a thick, heavy, almost chalky skin. The flesh inside is where you're going to get this nice, like, spiced, juicy fruit from, and then the stone inside. So a slow is actually part of the wild plum family, so that stone inside can impart a huge amount of flavor as well. So we have the whole fruits. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, quick question about the stone, because I remember speaking to a brewer where he was making cherry beer, and there was a kind of almondy, marzipan-y flavor in there as well, and he said that came from the stone in the almond. In the cherry rather. Sorry, and obviously you've got quite big stones in the slow. And we'll get onto the taste, but when I've tasted, there's a sort of almondy. Does that come from the? Well, where does that come from?
Stone.
Is that
comes from the stone?
Okay.
So the little bitter aftertaste you'll get is definitely from that skin contact that it has, and you know, obviously the fruitiness and the jamminess is what's coming from the flesh, and that stone is imparting these marzipan, Battenberg, cherry bakewell kind of flavors coming from it. Cherry bakewell is probably one of my favorite ways to describe this, because you've got that fruity jamminess and you've got that marzipan effect as well, and then lots of sweetness. And by doing this process, the array of flavors you get coming from that one fruit is amazing. It's great, and you're adding so much more than just adding, you know, slow juice concentrate. If you were to hold it up to the light as well, you'll notice that it's, you know, you can still see a little bit through it. You can still see light coming through it. Even if you hold it to the edge, you'll notice on the edge you even get almost like a brown tinge to it. So this is the skin contact it has as well. So it's anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks that our fruits are left in. So we have them frozen, and then we have a vat of room temperature, 60% ABV gin, and they're dumped in when they're frozen. The temperature change cracks all those skins and allows the gin to get in there and extract all those flavors. So anywhere between 6 to 8 weeks, they've normally tasted. They're all done on taste anyway. It's filtered off, rested, filtered again to get rid of any sediment, and then sugar is added towards the end to counteract that, you know, that strong bitterness that comes through it. But for me, the diversity is what sells this to me so much more than anything else. You can get slow gin anywhere, but I don't want to just drink something that tastes like Ribena.
Yeah.
Well, the Ribena is nice, but yeah, in this case,
absolutely.
It's great.
Ribena is definitely for the morning.
I find Ribena is great if you drink too much of this neat the next day with barbecue hula hoops. That'll be my go-to for the day after. It's only
those nice big marzipan.
It's only 26% as well, Phil.
Only 26, yeah.
Yeah, which I think is quite usle.
Which means you can have a whole bottle in one evening, so don't worry about
it. Just, oh no, off we go. But no, I think that's quite an important thing to just to focus on there in terms of what people are trying to do in reducing their alcohol intake. So I mean, it's something like this
Of course.
with a bit of soda
Yep.
is a much lower ABV if you're trying to mix it up. If you've already had a gin and tonic on the night, or you've had a martini and you want something that's less pokey, that's
Yep.
I mean that is but it's
I think
still does it
well,
still
as a mixing, I think like Fever Tree do a Sicilian lemonade, which is very, very good. Or homemade cloudy lemonade with this as well is fantastic. Or you remember, I mean, slow used to be very popular when I was younger. Slow and bitter lemon. Schweppes used to do that almost fluorescent, glow in the dark blue bitter lemon that you find catching cobwebs at the back of a dusty shelf in a pub somewhere. You don't really, I don't see that around it. My grandma used to drink that because used to say it was a drink that was a bit like her, which is slow and bitter. And so that's what she used to drink all the time. But I think with the cloudy lemonades, this is fantastic as well. But traditionally people tend to stick to drinking slow towards the end of the year, which I'm kind of against. I kind of try and tell people you can drink this all year round. It's fantastic in cocktails as well. We make a lovely spritz in the summertime. My girlfriend will drink a bottle of this just on ice with soda in a big wine glass, fresh fruits in it. Almost like you'd put a Pimm's together. One of my favorite cocktails in the world is called a Charlie Chaplin, which is shaken like a daiquiri, served up with apricot brandy and fresh lime juice. But it's a very summery drink. You can drink this, or it's a bit like a dog. It's for all year round, not just for Christmas.
Exactly. And also, I mean, I don't know for whether it's the same for you, but I've got family members and family friends who they often bring a bottle of slow gin that they've made and they make you taste it. And 9 times out of 10, it is awful. Like really, like licking a battery. It's so hot and unbalanced. And the amount of half drunk bottle, and it's always around Christmas time, isn't it?
Oh yeah, 100%. Well, I mean, traditionally, the slows are normally gathered at what's known as first frost, which was the end of September time, and when it was a great time for harvesting them. So people would collect them around this time of year, and they'd start, putting it together, and it wouldn't be ready until around Christmas period. And I don't know if you've ever seen, we do some wrapped bottles as well, like gift wrapped ones. And they were originally, if you look at Christmas time, people would gift other families their slow and would exchange almost. And it was kind of almost like a competition between them to see who can make the best slow. And everyone liked bitching about each other, and they come around and go, oh, Rosemary's slow gin this year is rubbish. Oh, mine's much better. But people, you could bottle it in pretty much any old bottle they could find. And so some of them were not very nice. So they'd wrap them in like lovely paper decorations and gift them that way. And so that's where it stems from. It was very much a gifting thing around Christmas time. I like it for dessert as well. It's lovely with a cheese board. It works with savory products very well.
Yeah, that's a great shout, actually.
You could pour some ice cream. You could pour over some ice cream.
It is over vanilla ice cream. Put some of this on it. It's very, very good. Very good.
Not good for the kids.
So these are the 3 we've tasted tonight, Phil, but there's other stuff going on there at the moment. Do you get to play around with quite a few different styles of gin, and is there anything else that you're particularly proud of at the moment that people should get their hands on?
So I haven't released a new, like a standalone new SKU at Hayman's yet. I've played around with lots of different ideas and approached James with a few. I mean, we're very busy at the moment because we're just about to start building another building next door to ours, which is for rum. But there's a few series that I want to do next year. I want to do a few seasonal releases next year. There's a very good family owned company that are growing teas from all over the world at the moment in Yorkshire, and I'd like to work with them about doing a range of gins containing teas from around the world. So I'd like to do the tea trip gins next year. I've got a few other mad, crazy ideas, but I think some of them might be a bit mad for James Hayman. So we'll see.
You still think there's scope for that, though? There's still room in the market.
There is, of course, there is.
Innovation.
Yes, absolutely. And I've heard this comment used quite a few times where people will say, like, "Oh, tradition's boring." Like, tradition is great. Sometimes it can stifle creativity. I mean, it doesn't really, but I feel like you have to stick with the traditional style first, and then you can branch off from there. But I don't think you should ever lose what you're originally about. And I think that's very important to the Haymans themselves. But it's one of the reasons I like working with this company as well. Is like the heritage and the tradition behind it is one of the reasons that why gin is what it is nowadays anyway. So why would you not lean towards that as well?
So I
Yeah.
remember a brewer saying a good phrase. He said, "We honor and respect the past and heritage, but we don't want to get stuck there. You know,
Yeah,
you can't keep
100%. Yeah, and
innovating.
of course you should always innovate, but yeah.
Yeah,
And that's it. I
you
mean,
can still do both.
I came in with 24 kilos of empty oyster shells the other day, and James told me to get out, so I was going
Yeah,
to distill them, and he was like, "No." I was like, all right, fine. I was going a bit mad, but yeah.
Oh no, that's a shame. That would have gone brilliantly in a martini. That would have been a.
Oh, I made an oyster and seaweeds gin a few years back for the Wright brothers oyster restaurants, and it was one of the
oh,
best gins I've ever made in my life. I loved it so much.
I
Amazing in a martini.
I do remember that hitting some bit of PR. So yes.
It
Um,
was called Half Shell Gin. It was a fantastic product.
ah,
well,
crikey.
You'll know this, Phil, because I'm don't want to boast. No one likes to show off, but I'm in France at the moment, and we are in a region we drove through a region with loads of oysters, and then we had some oyster shells, and we stayed in this like eco farm. Can you compost oyster shells? Will they biodegrade? I know this was a bit off piste,
I
but
mean,
they must do.
they must do, but it would take a very, very long
Yeah.
time. A
Yeah.
very long time. I'm not sure though, but yeah, they would take a very
Okay.
long time. That's for sure.
Well, it wasn't one of the questions I imagine you were expecting to be asked.
Well, make gin out of them first, and then compost them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll bring this seamlessly onto the B Corp thing as well, which is
Yes.
obviously you is very sustainable, which is
Mhm.
less open. That is a good, hard to get, hard to keep,
It
but
is. It is.
Yes.
increasingly important.
Yeah. So I mean, if I don't know if everyone is aware of B Corp, but B Corp is an accreditation that you can receive as a business, which surrounds sustainability, but not just sustainability in terms of like a product you're producing or your waste, but sustainability in people, sustainability in money, sustainability in future proofing, and it covers. It's a very broad scope of what it covers. And September 2 years ago, we certified as a B Corp certification company. We scored very highly on that, and and like you said, every couple of years you have to retest on that. But part of the lead up to this accreditation that we got was actually releasing a new product. So we released re-spirited vodka. And the idea behind it was we wanted to produce a completely closed net product. So we're not going out and sourcing anything new or creating a new supply chain anywhere. We're using everything, all the waste from within inside our own business to produce this one product. And it works really well. And re-spirited is selling extremely well. So we use any of our leftover or waste ethanols that we have in our bottling plant. All of my heads and tails from my production go into that, and it's redistilled 5 times, filtered through charcoal, and served up as re-spirited. It comes in a recycled glass bottle from the company that produce our branded Hayman's bottles as well. The labels are made from sugarcane husk from rum production that we buy rum from the Caribbean as well, so we use them for that. It's got a wooden cap. Cork is sustainable, so we've essentially produced a product from not having to buy anything new in, essentially. And that's where re-spirited was born, and it's doing really well. Not on training right now. We're doing
That's
really well.
amazing.
We were saying that I think with more and more drinks brands becoming accredited with B Corp, getting the B Corp accreditation,
Yeah.
I do think it'd be useful. And that needs to be either signified on menus more prominently,
Yep.
or maybe even grouped together. You're like, well, okay, these are. I mean, you might stop short of B Corp cocktails, but I
Yep.
think because people, it's one of it's in terms of criteria for picking a drink, it's getting increasingly higher up on the list.
Absolutely. I think
rightly
in the last 2 years it's grown a little bit, but I think that the industry, especially the hospitality industry, could do a little bit more. I'm not asking the hospitality industry to do any more than it's already doing, because they're already on the edge, sadly, for some places. But some get-togethers and showing off and posting more about the fact that other companies around you should join it. These things cost money, but I think it'll be a good thing. There are a few talks and seminars you can go to about it, but nothing really celebrating or partying about getting the B Corp certification yet. A few companies, like we swap our products with other B Corp companies as well. So the office has always got really nice cakes and chocolates and biscuits in it, and we send them lots of gin. It's a good deal. But I think more and more companies that do this, I think it will branch the B Corpness out a lot more.
Yeah, I think it's pretty important people understand quite how in depth and complicated it is, and how much of an audit the entire business is, rather than just the sustainability. It's about everything, staff and how ethics within the company.
Sustainability and people is one of the things that I think is the best things about B Corp. I think companies investing more time and money into their employees that they already have is only going to be better for everyone at the end of the day, instead of people just leaving a job, getting a new job every year, shitload of money, not just for the individual but for the companies as well. And so and I think sustainability and people is a big thing that I think quite a few companies need to focus on.
Just a quick one, Ben, because Jez asked about a Vespa Martini earlier.
Yes.
So I guess you can stick your London Dry with some of the re-spirited.
Yes, we do. We've just launched a Martini Masterclass, actually, which I run on every other Thursday at the moment, and we do make and talk about Vespa Martini in this. Just because it's nice to talk about Fleming, because he's a very interesting character anyway. And it is because we talk about the history of the Martini right the way back from, say, 1888 right up until the modern day Martini, and how it's evolved and changed so much over the years. It's nice to just right in the middle throw in a Vespa Martini and really mess with people's heads, and they're like, what? That doesn't make sense. Weren't you just telling me not to shake a martini? I was like, yeah, well,
Well, the thing about the Vespa is, if it's made badly, it really it can be a stinker of a drink.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's a hard one to get right, but if it does, I don't mind it. I think if it's made well, it can be a very enjoyable drink. It's just,
Fleming's original recipe called for Gordon's. Never mentioned a brand of vodka, but I think that's because most vodkas around at the time that were being sold were Russian. I don't think he liked them very much. But yeah, I mean, it's a great drink as well. It's a good entry level martini for people who've never had a martini before, because it's very easy drinking. That shaking, aerating the drink makes it a lot easier to drink.
Yeah.
But absolutely, yeah. Hayman's London Dry and re-spirited vodka it makes a lovely Vespa.
There we go, Jess. Wow. Okay, that is. We have come to the end of our hour. Phil, that was phenomenal. We have a round of applause for Phil, please.
Thank you.
Bloody hell, mate.
I think more demoralising than a clap on mute, I'm afraid, but there were people doing it.
Good. Thank you.
A hell of a lot of ground there in an hour with some phenomenal gins. That was a masterclass. So thank you so much for your time on that. Thanks to everyone.
No problem at all.
For getting all this gin out so people can enjoy it.
Great gins.
And there's been some very positive feedback in there. People are saying what they've enjoyed the most. The slow's gone down well, but so is the old Tom, which is nice to see, because I agree you are the kind of the flag bearers for that style of gin. So it's nice if people are old Tom for the win from that. So you'll
probably see a lot more of it this year. We're pushing a lot of activations this year on Old Tom. It's more about going around to the on-trade and getting the on-trade down to the distillery to do masterclasses about Old Tom, and really pushing that style of gin this year, I think. So you'll probably see a few more advertisements of it within the bars that you're drinking, which is
brilliant. That's good stuff. Well, thank you very much again, Phil.
No problem.
Thanks to everyone for joining us this evening.
That's okay. Anytime.
No, wicked. Thank you, folks at home. Hope you've had a nice time. We'll see you. What snack would you have with Old Tom? We'll do a snack report.
Okay.
Snack report.
We've been doing snack reports, Phil. It's a bit of an in joke. But
we do a snack report on our YouTube channel, which you're now going to subscribe to, Phil. Remember?
Yes, I am.
That's your next task.
No problem.
We'll know if you do. We'll find out. Okay. Very few. Okay.
The only snacks I ever have are cheeses that hurt to eat because they're so sharp, and pickles. That's all I ever eat. So,
okay, pickles with Old Tom.
Pickled everything. But,
okay. Pickled onion monster munch. Snack report.
Yeah, get involved.
All right. Thanks again, Phil.
No
Take care.
problem. Thank you very much, guys.
See you again next
Bye-bye,
month.
everyone.
Cheers.
Glad you enjoyed.
Bye.
Bye-bye.